Look, good evening, everybody. My name is Hugo Mann. I'm the CEO of the European Movement UK. And we're also absolutely thrilled to be joined by four really special guests this evening. We have Joao Vale de Almeida, who is the European Union Ambassador to the UK, Terry Reintke, MEP for Germany, Stephen Dorrell, the Chair of the European Movement UK and former Health Secretary, Dominic Grieve, former Attorney General and a leading supporter of the European Movement UK. The European Movement is the UK's largest and oldest pro-European network. We were established in 1949 with Winston Churchill as our first honorary president. And since that time, we've really been at the forefront of the pro-European discussion and at the centre of the growing pro-European movement in the UK. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce our first speaker, who is Joao Vale de Almeida, European Union Ambassador to the UK. The ambassador is a senior EU diplomat who first started working for the European Commission in their Lisbon office in 1982. Before becoming the first EU ambassador to the UK, he was the EU ambassador to the United Nations. And before that, he was EU ambassador to the United States. So quite a CV. So I'd like now just to hand over to the ambassador to kick off proceedings.
Well, thank you very much for inviting me tonight. It's a great pleasure to join all of you in celebrating Europe Day. I want to start by praising and congratulating the European movement for what you're doing tonight, but most importantly for what you have been doing since 1949, inspired by Winston Churchill. And it's very, rewarding to see that you are still alive and kicking after all these years, and you are promoting European values. And I thank you for that as a European citizens. I'm very happy to share with you this platform and celebrate Europe Day. It's good to be surrounded by so many friends, although we are respecting social distancing, but I feel part of a larger group and a big community of people that are interested, committed to Europe, to the European Union, to its values. And I thank you for that. I'm pleased to be joined by such a distinguished panel, and I look forward to engage in this discussion. And allow me a final word of introduction to salute all those that are following us through whatever means throughout the country, and I'm sure also outside of the United Kingdom. Thank you for joining us tonight, and I hope you stay committed and engaged. And I offer the services of the European Union delegation to the United Kingdom, Smith Square, Westminster, London. You can reach us through different means, and we are at your service as well. Let me make a couple of comments before we go into a larger debate and listen to the other members of the panel. I think today, or this week, or this year's Europe Day is a very special one. First of all, because the United Kingdom has left the European Union. This is the first time we celebrate and mark Europe Day without having the UK as a member state, but also because we are in the middle of a pandemic. We are in the middle of or a beginning of what can be a very serious economic recession. And we are, most of us, that's the case for me, certainly, and for most of you, I guess, under lockdown. So there couldn't be a more special Europe Day than this. And we should be aware of that. But maybe these kind of situations make us feel even closer together and sharing a common purpose. The reason why we do this on the 9th of May is because the then Foreign Minister France made a very important statement. The Schuman Declaration, Robert Schuman's declaration, exactly 70 years ago, 1 year after you were founded. It's always good, at least as because I'm trained in history, I like to go back to the source. And my favorite quote from Schumann's declaration, I'm going to read it to you. Europe will not be made all at once or according to a single plan. It will be built through concrete achievements which first create a de facto solidarity. I think this is a very important statement. And 70 years later, it's still absolutely updated. It's still absolutely relevant. And this is the kind of, this is what characterizes historic statements. They are still valid and relevant many years later. And this inspires me at least two reflections that I would like to share with you. The first one is about the United Kingdom. I mean, if you look and read and think about this sentence from Schuman, and you think about the contribution of the United Kingdom to the European Union for 47 years, there's a lot in common. If I use the words incremental, if I use the words pragmatic, if I use the words, the expression results-oriented, all this is associated to Schuman's declaration. And all this is what one normally characterizes, how one normally characterizes the British contribution to the European Union. You can think of the single market, you can think of enlargement, you can think of trade, you can think of the four freedoms, and many more areas in which the Union has developed that have a very important British imprint, a very important British contribution. That's why today, this week, I'm very glad to celebrate Europe Day with the British citizens. The UK has left, the British citizens are still there. And I want to pay tribute to the generation after generation of British people that contributed to the European Union, from Winston Churchill to Roy Jenkins, to many others. And I won't quote too many because I can be politically incorrect, and the diplomats and the ambassadors should never be. But you know what I mean. There were people, generation after generation, contributing. The EU would not be what it is today without the British contribution. That's why we are very happy, honored and glad to celebrate today and this week, Europe's Day, with the British citizens. A decision has been taken to leave the European Union, a democratic decision which we respect, although we regret it, but we fully, entirely respect this decision. So instead of going back to previous debates, I think what we need to do, and what I invite you to do, is to focus on the future. Let's build the next stage of the relationship between the EU and the UK. Let's implement the withdrawal agreement, and let's build a solid, ambitious framework for our future relations. I'm sure we'll come back to some of these issues in the debate. My second reflection is about the EU itself. So, reading again the Schuman Declaration, what comes to mind today is the following. I'm listening again to a number of doomsday scenarios about the future of the European Union. You know, everybody's saying, well, this is the end, my friend, if I can quote. You know, they will never survive this situation. Now it's for good. You know, this kind of, well, I've heard this before. You know, I've been around for some time, as you described, and it brings back memories. It goes back, for instance, to 2005, the two negative referenda on the Dutch and the French one. I was, at the time, Chief of Staff of President José Manuel Barroso from the European Commission. And I can, if ever I write a book, you will see a few pages about those difficult days. One negative referendum after another on the Constitution of the European Union. Then came the financial crisis. I don't need to elaborate on that. And the sovereign debt crisis in the euro area. I was ambassador to the United States at that point in time, and I can tell you, it was not easy. You know, every day, every dinner party, every conference, they will ask me, Ambassador, do you still have a job? Do you still have a union? How many countries have left the euro last night? And this is the kind of situation which, of course, an ambassador has to handle. That come back to mind when people say that now with this situation, then came the migration crisis, and then came Brexit. And every time you would see this kind of doomsday scenarios and people predicting the demise of the European Union. Well, we came out of them. We survived all this crisis. And most importantly, we came out of them having addressed most of the liabilities that were at the heart of the given crisis. If you look at the financial crisis, we didn't solve everything, but we are much better equipped today than we were when the crisis happened. On migration, again, we have not solved everything, but we are in a better position today than we were before. And if you take Brexit, instead of destroying the European Union, Brexit created a new momentum within the 27 and the public opinions about Europe. So going back to the Schuman Declaration, this idea that we go step by step, that we need concrete achievements and we make progress on concrete achievements is something that I'm inspired to reflect upon today as I see the debate about the future of Europe going into, in my view, too pessimistic and too negative tones. My conclusion for this introduction is to say, well, again, thanking you for this, but inviting all of you to, together with all of us in the European Union, and myself, and I'm more than ready to participate in events like this and discussions around the country soon as conditions allow, let's focus on what we can do to strengthen this relationship beyond Brexit. Let's look at the future. Let's promote our common values. There ain't enough people around the world promoting our values, and there are too many people around the world combating our values. So we need to be present, protecting our interests, economic, strategic, and otherwise. And you know, my conclusion, having spent you know, almost 9 years in the US and the last 4 years at the UN, I can tell you that the world needs a strong relationship between the United Kingdom and the European Union. The world needs a strong European Union. And that's what sort of inspires me today. And that's the kind of reflection and invitation that I would like to leave for this event of ours today. And thank you very much for the invitation.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. That's fantastic. We've got lots of questions, I'm sure you can imagine. In fact, I think we had something like 250 plus pre-submitted, which we're not going to be able to get through in what's left. But two very quick questions, I think, which we'd like to ask. I think it's definitely sort of slotting into what you've just said. The first being, you know, obviously with the Brexit vote, I mean, how do pro-Europeans on both sides of the channel preserve amicable relationships regardless of the outcome of the Brexit negotiations? Is there anything the EU delegation is doing to help with that? And a second one, very quickly, I mean, obviously with the pandemic and COVID-19 and sort of economic downturn, which often leads to sort of anti-EU rhetoric, and you know, what can be done to protect the European values to stop sort of rise of populism or nationalism sort of popping up in the wake of this crisis, if that makes sense? I mean, there's a couple of the questions which have been pre-submitted, but
yeah.
I wonder if
well, I think very, very good questions and very important issues raised there. And I try to be telegraphic. I think, first of all, we need all of us to contribute to an informed debate. If there is one lesson that we learned from the history of the European Union, and I mentioned negative referendum, I could mention, you know, the referendum in the UK as well, many other countries. And, you know, I don't think anyone was happy with the quality of any of the discussions prior to referendum in any country. So I'm not addressing specific the Brexit issue. I'm addressing the issue of the quality of the debate about Europe. I'm addressing the issue of disinformation. I'm addressing the issue of misleading elements of the debate. I think all of us who believe in Europe should contribute to an informed debate. Facts, 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 contextualization of those facts. I think this is the first contribution any of us can make to the future quality of the situation in Europe and the relations between the UK and the European Union. The second one is, I think, to be part of this debate about what the future relations should be about and what is at stake here in the discussion. And I'm very happy to have been already in the few weeks that I was in London to engage with a number of people that want to contribute to that debate. And, you know, last but not least, let's focus on the essence of things. And the essence of things are the values behind everything we do. And in today's world, for the reasons you mentioned and many more, these values are under attack, and we are not numerous enough to fight back, and we should fight back.
Thank you very much.